You are not weak. That might be the first thing you need to hear today. Because after so many attempts, so many relapses, so many times you felt defeated for not being able to keep a promise to yourself, it's common to believe that the problem lies in your character, your willpower, your morals. But the truth is different. What holds you back is a mechanism in your brain, an invisible chemical mechanism that works silently every time you click on a video, every time you indulge in a few minutes of cheap pleasure. This is the part that almost no one tells you. And that's why so many men spend years sinking without understanding what's happening inside them. They think they are wrong, that they were born with some special weakness, that they will never have enough discipline. But neuroscience proves that's not it. Addiction is not a moral failing. It's not a sign that you are less of a man. Addiction is a hijacking of the brain, and when you understand the mechanics of this hijacking, you regain power. Today, on day 10 of our journey, you will see how the brain was designed to reward you, how dopamine works, how pornography manipulates this system and turns something natural into compulsion. You will realize that the fight you are fighting is not against a forbidden pleasure, but against a biological mechanism that has been hacked. And that changes everything, because instead of blaming yourself, you start arming yourself with knowledge. I want you to think about one thing. How many times have you wondered why the desire seems uncontrollable, almost as if you weren't the one making the decision? The answer lies in the brain's reward circuits. They were designed to ensure your survival, to push you towards food, sex, fulfillment. But when you hand these circuits over to artificial stimuli, like pornography, they become distorted. What was a driving force of life becomes a shackle. And here comes the most important point. You are not doomed. These same circuits that have been hijacked can be reprogrammed. The same brain that drags you down can be trained to push you up. Science not only explains how addiction works, it shows how liberation is possible. Therefore, I want to extend an invitation. Subscribe to the channel right now. Because this series is not just about information, it's about transformation. Each chapter is a new weapon, and you can't enter this war unarmed and take advantage of it. Comment on what day you are on the journey. It could be day 1, day 10, or day 50. The important thing is not to fight alone, because addiction loves silence and isolation. Today, the question that will guide everything is simple. Who controls your mind? You or the impulses that hijacked your brain? What is addiction in the brain? Let's get straight to the point. Addiction doesn't start with morals, it starts with chemistry. In the brain, there is a system called the reward circuit. It is basically the engine that moves us, what makes us get out of bed, look for food when we are hungry, seek company when we are alone, or work hard to achieve something. This circuit works thanks to a substance called dopamine. Dopamine is not happiness, as many people repeat. It is expectation, motivation. It's that spark that says, go after this, because it will be worth it. And every time you do something that guarantees survival or increases your chances of reproduction, the brain releases a dose of dopamine as a reward. Eating when you are hungry, running and feeling your body active, hugging someone you love. All of this triggers this system. Now here's the problem. Pornography has learned to hijack this mechanism. Unlike real life, which has natural limits, pornography offers infinite novelty. There is always another video, another category, another scene. For the brain, each novelty is treated as a gigantic reward. It's as if you had suddenly discovered an inexhaustible source of food for the dopamine system. And guess what? It doesn't know how to say enough. This is how addiction is born. In the beginning, it just seems like fun. You watch a video and feel pleasure. But little by little, the brain begins to learn that this artificial stimulus is much faster and more intense than any natural pleasure. And then it starts prioritizing pornography. It creates stronger neural connections with each repetition, as if it were engraving in your mind. This is the fastest way to reward. Go this way. This is the central point that neuroscience brings. It's not a matter of lack of willpower. When you feel the impulse, it's because your brain has already paved the road. It has already created automatic routes that link desire, click, pleasure, relief. The more you repeat, the more this road becomes a wide and easy-to-travel highway. Meanwhile, the natural paths, socializing, training, reading, creating, become narrow, almost erased. And here's the hard truth. The more you give in, the harder it becomes to resist. Not because you are weak, but because your brain has been conditioned. Addiction is chemical before it is moral. But this also brings hope. Because if the brain is plastic, that is, if it can change, then this highway can also be erased. You can reopen the old paths, strengthen the road to self-control, rebuild your reward system. But for that, you need to stop blaming yourself and start acting like someone who understands the enemy. This is the first step to liberation, seeing addiction not as an isolated sin, but as a neural pattern that can be broken. The pornography cycle. Now that you understand what addiction is in the brain, let's talk about the specific cycle of pornography. Because this addiction has its own dynamics, different from others. It works like this. Each click generates a dopamine rush. It seems small, but it's powerful. Because dopamine is not only released in pleasure, but also in the expectation of pleasure. That is, when you are looking for videos, browsing from tab to tab, scrolling pages, your brain is already celebrating. It is already receiving dopamine just from the search, not just from the climax. This creates an almost infinite cycle. Search, find, watch, search again. And since the internet never ends, this cycle can last for hours. This is where the big difference lies in relation to real sex. In the physical world, there is a limit. You get tired, the body saturates, there is a natural end. In pornography, there isn't. There is always one more tab, one more scene, one more category. This means that the brain never enters full satiety. It gets stuck in an eternal loop. Now compare this with drugs, gambling, and refined sugar. All these addictions work in the same way. They give the brain quick, intense, and easy rewards without real effort. You don't need to run miles, you don't need to conquer anything. You don't need to face risks. Just one click, the reward comes instantly, but it doesn't nourish, it doesn't build, it doesn't generate progress. It's just a peak, followed by a fall. And this fall is precisely what pushes you to the next search. You feel empty, tired, sometimes even ashamed. But the mind has already learned that there is a quick way to relieve this discomfort. Go back to pornography. And so the cycle closes. Pleasure, fall to emptiness, new click, new pleasure. A wheel that never stops spinning. This cycle is addictive because it's not just pleasure, it's expectation, it's search, it's illusion of control. It's the brain believing that it will find the perfect scene, the right video. And this search never ends. It's like a hunter in a forest where there are always footprints, but never any game. He keeps running, always believing that he is about to find it. And here is the most cruel point. This cycle is not satisfied. It only increases. Because over time, the brain gets used to the basic stimuli. The same scene no longer generates impact. The same category no longer excites. So you start looking for the most extreme, the most different, the most forbidden. And every time you do that, you dig deeper into the hole of addiction. This is the pornography cycle. And understanding this cycle is fundamental. Because when you find yourself in the middle of it, you can't believe it's a lack of character. It's just a circuit being triggered. Your fight is precisely to reprogram this circuit, to interrupt this cycle. Every time you resist, you put a stone in the gear. It may seem small, but each stone hinders the mechanism, and over time the machine breaks. The trap of tolerance. There is a word that brings men down in silence. Tolerance. Not social tolerance, but neurochemical tolerance. When you bombard the brain with strong and repeated stimuli, it adjusts the dials. What gave a peak yesterday, today seems lukewarm. To feel the same, it starts demanding more time, more tabs, more extremes. It's the same logic as alcohol for the beginner who, over time, needs 3-4 doses to achieve the effect of the first. With pornography, it's the same, only without smell, without visible hangover, and with an infinite pharmacy of novelty 2 clicks away. In the beginning, any video works. The novelty itself triggers dopamine. After weeks or years, this trigger decreases. That normal content no longer moves you. The escalation ladder enters. Different categories, more intense fantasies, faster rhythms, multiple videos played simultaneously, compulsive search for the perfect clip. You are not choosing better, you are just trying to overcome tolerance. And the top of this ladder does not exist. Satiety does not come. What comes is more desensitization. This process hijacks your pleasure sensors. The brain starts calibrating the ruler by the artificial. Lunch with friends loses its charm. Reading becomes tedious. Training yields less. Real conversations seem too slow. It's not because life got worse, it's because the ruler got addicted. You compared water with distilled liquor. And when the water of real life doesn't give you a high, you conclude that you are without energy, without motivation, without will. In reality, you are doped with tolerance. Another corrosive effect, the loss of stimulus control. In normal environments, reality itself creates limits: fatigue, time, social context. In pornography, there is no limit. There is always one more video, one more angle, one more tab. This infinite offer teaches the brain to seek novelty for novelty's sake, a behavior called novelty seeking. Over time, the search becomes the addiction. You feel more excitement in hunting than in finding. And when you finally find it, it lasts seconds. Again, tolerance. Why does this matter for your freedom? Because tolerance is not just personal taste, it's neural remodeling. Receptors decrease sensitivity. Paths that link expectation search discharge become the preferred route. The button that should be triggered by real effort now fires with clicks, and each day like this reinforces the lie. Just a little more. The antidote begins with awareness, knowing that the hunger for something new is biology, not need, that this confused emptiness is a sign of desensitization, not of lack of personal value. When you understand the mechanics, you stop fighting with the mirror and start re-educating the brain. Tolerance is built little by little, and it is little by little that it is undone. Today you can already start dismantling the ladder that led you here. How does this manifest in practice? Observe your last months. Has the session time increased? Have you started to skip parts of the video because nothing held your attention? Did you need more aggressive stimuli, more absurd scripts, higher playback speed? These are classic signs of tolerance. It's not refined preference, it's desensitization in progress. When the senses become numb, you need to shout louder to feel something. And shouting louder has a cost. Some say, "But I'll stop when I want." If it were true, you would have stopped in the first attempts. What keeps you going is not a secret perversion. It's the toxic combination of tolerance, plus infinite novelty, plus frictionless access. Cutting any of these elements already changes the game. Cutting all three changes life. Therefore, the first commitment is humility, recognizing that physiology is involved. Humility does not diminish you, it arms you. You stop fighting in the dark and start using strategy. And strategy here is reducing exposure, increasing awareness, and accepting that natural pleasure will seem weak in the beginning. It's normal. Water only tastes good again when you give up the distilled liquor for enough time. The reinforcement of habit. If tolerance is the chemistry of addiction, the reinforcement of habit is the engineering of the prison. The brain is a machine for automating routes. Everything that is repeated becomes a trail. It doesn't ask if the trail is good, it asks if it is frequent. If it is, it paves it. Look at the map. Trigger, routine, reward, regret. Trigger can be boredom, stress, loneliness, shower time, being alone at home, cell phone in bed, suggestive notification. You know the routine: open the browser, just to see, search, click, switch. The reward is the quick discharge, a few minutes of anesthesia, relief from tension, high dopamine. Soon after, regret and empty promise, never again. In practice, the brain only registered that sequence solved the discomfort of the trigger. It doesn't register the guilt, it registers the relief. And every time the same discomfort appears, it offers the same solution. That's why you feel that when you see it, it's already done. It's not black magic, it's automatism. The road is paved. A tiny gesture, unlocking the screen, triggers the entire sequence. And the more automated, the less chance of reason intervening. You don't decide, you slide. The good news is that habit is symmetrical. You can unpave a road and build another. Two keys control the process: substitution and friction. Substitution is replacing the reward routine with another that also reduces the discomfort of the trigger without generating guilt. Quick physical movement, cold water on the face, leaving the room, sending an audio to someone, opening a book already marked, breathing deeply for 2 minutes. Friction is making the paved road difficult, cell phone out of the room, blockers that require a long password, no visual shortcuts on the home screen, no just 5 minutes lying down. Each extra second breaks the autopilot and gives time for reason to appear. Writing your own map helps. What are your 3 most common triggers? What routine does your body trigger? What reward is it looking for? What substitutions work for you? By mapping, you take the habit out of the underground and put light on it. Without light, it's a ghost. With light, it's engineering. You disassemble piece by piece. And remember, no habit is undone with discourse. It yields in practice with repetition. Every time you interrupt the sequence at the trigger, you weaken the old road. Every time you execute the substitution until the will falls, you cement the new road. One day, the hand that used to reach for the cell phone will reach for water. The mind that ran to the tab will run outside. It's not luck. It's re-engineering your day. A decisive detail: you don't break habit, you replace it. The brain hates emptiness. If you only remove the old routine, the trigger will continue to knock on the door and the body will open to any old exit. Whoever wins prepares emergency exits in advance, glass of cold water already in sight, sneakers at the door for a quick walk, book open on the right page, notepad with 3 lines of what to do. When the impulse comes, you don't negotiate, you execute the plan. And if you fail one day, don't turn error into identity. Analyze the trigger, adjust the friction, refine the substitution. Habit is not moral, it's mechanical. Small accumulated improvements become big change. Forget the perfectionism that paralyzes and embrace the consistency that transforms. Cognitive consequences. Addiction doesn't just steal time, it steals processor. Whoever lives trapped in this cycle feels the cognitive consequences in their skin, and then believes that they weren't born focused. It's not identity, it's effect. First, fragmented focus. The brain conditioned to quick dopamine peaks loses tolerance to long tasks without novelty. Studying for 40 minutes seems like torture. Reading 3 pages becomes a marathon. Working on something complex without checking the cell phone every 5 minutes seems impossible. It's not moral weakness, it's a hardware trained in instant rewards. It keeps zapping internally, looking for the next micro-discharge. The work window is open, but the head is in 1,000 tabs. Second, compromised memory. Too much stimulus, too little consolidation. The avalanche of scenes, clips, sounds, and changes in rhythm trains the brain for superficiality. You even consume information all day, but little settles. Hence the feeling of cloudy mind. Forgets messages, loses objects, doesn't remember what you studied yesterday. It's the hyperstimulation taking its toll on your ability to store what matters. Third, lazy decision-making. When the dominant routine is seeking quick relief, the cost-benefit system becomes distorted. Tasks with delayed reward, projects, training, studies, seem too expensive. Tasks with immediate reward, scrolling feed, opening tab, always seem cheap. Result: chronic procrastination, piles of pending tasks, self-image of "I can't handle it." Fourth, tolerance to discomfort plummets. As you anesthetize all tension with stimulus, small frustrations become gigantic. Any boredom triggers the search for escape. This corrodes emotional resilience and makes you more reactive, irritable, impatient, scattered. The good part? None of this is a tattoo. They are functional effects, not sentences. When you cut the stimulus and build routines that require sustained attention, daily reading, training, deep work in blocks, the focus grows back. When you reduce the pollution of tabs and notifications, the memory breathes. When you practice small and consistent decisions, now I start for 5 minutes, the inertia yields. When you learn to stay with the discomfort without escaping, emotional tolerance returns. Neuroplasticity is not a pretty word. It's the mechanism that gives you back the keys. Today, by choosing less screen and more presence, you are already programming the return of your focus and your respect for yourself. Want examples of the return? After 2 weeks with less screen and more reading, you realize that you can maintain attention for longer. After a month of training breathing and focusing on short tasks, getting up to study no longer seems like punishment. With 60-90 days, many report clearer memory, firmer decisions, and less reactivity. It's not a miracle. It's biology responding to your routine. And there's a silent bonus: cognitive self-esteem. When you complete blocks of deep work, when you study without escaping, when you finish what you started, a different confidence is born. You stop seeing yourself as the guy who always procrastinates and start seeing yourself as someone reliable. This new mirror is perhaps the greatest liberation of all: emotional consequences. The marks of addiction don't just appear in your browser history. They appear in your mood, how you see yourself, how you relate to the world. Science shows that when the reward system becomes dysregulated, emotions that should rise and fall like waves turn into an unstable tide. You wake up more anxious, become impatient with small things, lose patience with those you love. And deep down, a low chorus appears repeating, "You're worthless and you can't do it. You're going to fail again." This is not fate, it's not a curse. It's a brain with sensors addicted to quick highs and unable for now to savor the simple. Anxiety is the first symptom that many people report. It's not just nervousness. It's a restlessness spread throughout the body, a mental buzzing that doesn't turn off. When the mind gets used to silencing discomfort with a dopamine rush, any tension becomes a threat. Without the quick escape, the nervous system becomes hyper-alert, and then you associate everything with danger: unanswered message, overdue task, silence in the room. You're not crazy. You have a miscalibrated alarm system. Then comes the guilt. Guilt alone is information. I did something that doesn't match who I want to be. But in addiction, it becomes identity. I am the mistake. Neuroscience explains, after the artificial discharge, there is a drop in dopamine and a reduction in the tone of motivation. You interpret it as moral weakness, but the brain is only registering contrast. Result? Sadness, apathy, shame. Shame, in turn, isolates. And isolation feeds the cycle. Perfect prison. There's also mood swings. Days when you're high and euphoric for no reason, followed by days when everything seems grey. This up and down is not fate. It's the pendulum of a system that hasn't stabilized yet. Add to that the unrealistic comparison that pornography plants. Perfect bodies, performative reactions, impossible script. Your brain learns to compare real life with an edited movie. The ability to be enchanted with the normal is lost. Another emotional effect: numbness. Have you ever noticed when a song that used to give you chills now causes nothing? Or when a good conversation doesn't seem to hit? It's not that you've become cold, you're desensitized. Receptors that live in carnival stop celebrating the simple. The result is a whatever that sucks color from everyday life. It's common to confuse this with depression. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Often, it's just a brain exhausted from exaggeration. And there's self-esteem. Self-esteem doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from fulfilling promises to yourself. When you say, "Today I'll close and open the tab," the mind registers, "I can't trust myself." This corrodes self-perception. Over time, you start wanting less, accepting less, negotiating your standards. Why try? I always mess everything up. These thoughts are not prophecy. They are emotional habit, and habit is re-educated. What is the way out? First, name what you feel. Take it out of the realm of I am and put it in I am feeling. I am feeling anxious, I am feeling ashamed, I am feeling desensitized. The verb matters. Then remember that emotion is data, not dictator. You can move even with fear. You can welcome yourself even with guilt. You can connect even in numbness. Finally, give the body what it needs to stabilize. Sleep, sun, movement, connection, purpose. Emotions are not fixed only with phrases. They are regulated with routines, and every routine that pulls you into the real world weakens the emotional prison of addiction. When pleasure becomes prison. In the beginning, it seemed like just pleasure. A few minutes of escape, a quick relief. It's okay, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Neuroscience calls this reinforcement, stimulus, reward, repetition. What was a choice becomes a path. With each click, you record the message. When I feel bad, this makes me feel good. And from then on, the brain starts offering the same solution for any discomfort. Boredom, anxiety, loneliness, frustration. Pleasure is not the problem. The problem is when it becomes the only way out. The reward system works by contrast. The higher the peak, the more the rest of the day seems boring. Pornography delivers easy and repeatable peaks. Real life delivers smooth oscillations and complex contexts. Result? The simple loses its flavor. What used to bring joy, good conversation, workout, finished work, sunset, becomes okay. You start to feel that you need strong stimulus to live. In practice, this is prison. Prison why? Because your freedom decreases. You want to study, but your body asks for a break. You want to sleep early, but just one more video. You want to meet people, but it's better to stay here. The routine revolves around the next peak, and every prison has guards. Here the guards are the excuses. I deserve it, and it's hard, and just today, and I'll get better later. They are not arguments, they are scripts that the mind repeats to not lose the dose. Over time, you start to notice withdrawal symptoms. It's not just sexual desire, it's craving to alter emotional state. Irritation for no reason, impatience, lack of focus, constant feeling of emptiness. And when you give in, comes the sequence: peak, relief, fall, guilt. In the laboratory, this is measured in curves. In life, this feels like tiredness of existing. The prison also redefines what you think is normal. Increasingly extreme videos, higher speed, multiple tabs. Tolerance rises, and with it, the risk of crossing limits that you swore you would never cross. When you realize it, your moral compass has been outsourced to an algorithm. Pleasure, which should serve life, has come to command life. How to break this? First, seeing. Name the mechanism. Easy pleasure, reinforcement, escalation, fall. Second, interrupting the cycle at the beginning. The first click is the door of the cell. Third, putting pleasure back in the place of servant. Natural rewards, human contact, work that gives pride, real rest. When pleasure returns to being a consequence of living, not a substitute, the bars begin to weaken. There is a simple test to know if pleasure has become prison. Ask yourself, who decides? If, when you choose what to do, the first reference is, how do I relieve myself now? The hierarchy is inverted. Freedom is being able to postpone, choose, direct. Prison is obeying without thinking. And when obeying becomes a pattern, you start negotiating pieces of your life. Minutes become hours, hours become days, goals become empty promises. It's not drama, it's accounting. And the account doesn't close. Add a final question to your routine. Does this strengthen me or weaken me? If the honest answer is weakens me, you already have the key to turn in the door. The good news: neuroplasticity. The good news is that your brain is not broken. It is adapted to the wrong environment, and what adapts can readapt. This has a name: neuroplasticity. In simple language, the brain changes with what you repeat. Paths that receive traffic become avenues. Abandoned paths become trails covered with weeds. If for years you have reinforced the route of immediate pleasure, it is natural that it is paved. But you can build another road. How does this reconstruction happen? First, by interrupting the stimulus. Without new peaks, the receptors stop being bombarded and begin to recover sensitivity. This does not happen overnight. In the first days, there is the famous crash: apathy, lack of energy, irregular mood. It's the body recalibrating. Then windows of clarity appear, moments of focus, flashes of motivation, desire to do simple things. These windows are the sign that the new road is being paved. Second, by substitution. Cutting the stimulus is half the job. The other half is occupying the system with natural rewards. Regular physical movement, consistent sleep, morning light, decent food, real connections, work with beginning, middle and end. Each of these elements releases neurotransmitters in a rhythmic and safe way, teaching the brain that it is possible to feel good without fireworks. Gradually, your motivation stops depending on peaks and starts to organize itself in cycles. Third, by attention. When you observe an impulse without obeying, you activate control circuits that, with practice, become stronger. It's like training a discrete muscle. In the beginning, it seems useless. Then you realize that you can choose even under pressure. Science calls this increase in inhibitory control and interoceptive awareness. In practice, it is the experience of feeling the wave rise and not drowning. Fourth, by meaning. Brain is not just chemistry, it is also meaning. When you connect abstinence to a larger why, health, family, faith, life project, discipline stops being punishment and becomes mission. Sustained motivation comes from purpose. Without purpose, any discomfort becomes reason to give up. With purpose, discomfort becomes step. How long does it take? There is no timer. For some, weeks. For others, months. What matters is not counting days as trophies, but living days that build the new pattern. Relapses can happen, and do not erase what has been re-educated. They only remind you that the old road is still there. You don't have to hate yourself for stumbling. You need to return to the root. Pay attention to the signs that plasticity is in progress. Sleep starting to regulate, easier laughter, desire to move, curiosity returning, focus that lasts longer than 5 minutes, conversation that yields. These signs are small but cumulative. It's like this. Today you endure 10 minutes more, tomorrow 20, then a whole night. Suddenly you realize that you no longer need to watch every step. The new path has become habit. Neuroplasticity is not magic. It is mathematics of repetition. What you practice, you strengthen. What you abandon, you weaken. If you practice presence, connection, work, and real rest, addiction loses ground. And when the ground changes, the old tree has nowhere to take root. How to reprogram the brain. Now that you understand the scientific basis of addiction, comes the practical part. How to reprogram a brain that has spent years hostage to artificial stimuli. The key word is intelligent substitution. It is not enough to simply stop. Stopping without redirecting is like trying to contain a river with your hands. The water overflows, drags, and returns with more force. It is necessary to open new channels where energy can flow. The first of these is sleep. Sleep is not luxury, it is repair shop. While you sleep, the brain consolidates memories, cleans toxins, recalibrates neurotransmitters. Without deep and regular sleep, no effort of discipline is sustained. Whoever tries to overcome addiction sleeping, little discovers sooner or later that the tired mind looks for shortcuts, and the fastest shortcut is always the old route of immediate pleasure. Want to start reprogramming your brain? Start sleeping like a warrior. Fixed schedules, screen off before bed, dark room. The second channel is movement. Exercise is not just for muscles, it is for synapses. Every time you move intensely enough to accelerate breathing and heartbeats, the brain releases endorphin, serotonin, and dopamine in balanced doses. Unlike the explosive peak of pornography, exercise offers gradual discharge, which comes with focus and clarity. Running, training, swimming, cycling has little matters. What matters is teaching the body that pleasure also lives in action, not just on the screen. Third, socialization. Isolation is fertile ground for relapse. Addiction thrives in silence, in the dark, in no one is watching. Being with people, talking, laughing, sharing victories and even fragilities activates brain areas linked to connection and empathy. It's natural dopamine, and it also reinforces identity. You remember that you are human, that you were not born to live locked in secret cycles. If you don't have a close network, create one. Comment on the videos, join communities, seek dialogues. The chemistry of connection is antidote against the chemistry of addiction. Fourth, reading. Reading is training focus, imagining, nourishing yourself with ideas that build. Pornography steals imagination because it delivers ready-made images. Reading returns imagination because it requires active effort. In addition, good books plant seeds of purpose, remind you of who has overcome challenges, inspire the mind to fight. Fifth, spirituality or philosophy. For some, prayer. For others, meditation. For others still, stoic reflection. What matters is not the form, but the act of cultivating silence and purpose. The brain finds balance when it is reminded that there is something greater than immediate impulses. Reprogramming is repeating. Every day without pornography is one more brick on the new road. Every healthy habit is cement that hardens this road. In the beginning, it seems difficult. Then it seems automatic. Finally, it seems natural. Don't delude yourself thinking that doing nothing is enough. The unoccupied mind is invitation to relapse. The secret is to substitute, reorganize, discipline. Thus, little by little, you show the brain that pleasure can be ally and not executioner. Think with me. How many times have you wanted to focus on something simple, studying, listening to music, talking to someone, and realized that the mind escaped, ran to memories of scenes, to fantasies, to impulses? This is the invisible mark of addiction. It infiltrates thoughts even in moments when you would like to be present. The difficulty of concentration is not lack of intelligence. It is reflection of a reward system that has learned to always seek the easiest stimulus. Imagine a student in front of a book. He reads a page, but the words seem to dance as if they didn't fix. He changes position, looks at the cell phone, thinks about opening a forbidden tab. It's not because he doesn't value studies. It's because the brain, trained in the short term, always demands immediate gratification. Now imagine this same student, months after discipline, focus that lasts an hour, then two, pleasure in finishing the chapter, pride in advancing. What changed? Neuroplasticity in action. Or think about relationships. You're in front of someone who likes you, but the mind is dispersed, comparing, imagining, sabotaging. It's not lack of desire for the real person, it's mismatch. Pornography hijacks expectation, redefines pattern, and reduces patience with reality. After freeing yourself, you discover the charm of small things. A look, a long conversation, a true touch. This difficulty in focusing is one of the greatest proofs that addiction is not moral weakness, but chemical dependence. But it is also opportunity. Because every time you resist the impulse and bring the mind back to the task, you are reinforcing the circuits of self-control. It's like strengthening an invisible muscle. Now I want you to reflect and answer in the comments. Have you ever felt that you lost the ability to focus on simple things because of addiction? Be honest. Your answer is not just venting, it is testimony. Others will read and realize that they are not alone. You yourself will read days later and remember your struggle. Right. This is the most practical way to transform knowledge into action. Philosophy. Plus, science shows what happens in the brain. Philosophy shows what to do with it. And when you unite the two, a solid path is born. Neuroscience explains that impulses are reinforced electrical circuits. Stoicism explains that impulses are not orders, they are just suggestions that you can accept or refuse. Together they say, you are not victim, you are guardian. The Stoics believed that the mind is battlefield. Epictetus said, it is not things that disturb us, but the interpretation we make of them. Neuroscience translates, it is not the impulse itself, it is the answer you give. A click is just an electrical opportunity. You decide whether to reinforce or let it starve. This choice is small but cumulative. Each minimal victory is step. Another point, science affirms that the brain is shaped by repetition. Philosophy says, character is destiny. What you repeat, you become. Therefore, every time you choose not to surrender, you not only strengthen synapses, you strengthen identity. It is the fusion between biology and virtue. Many think that discipline is prison, but the two fields agree. Discipline is freedom. Without discipline, you are slave of automatic circuits. With discipline, you govern. Science calls it self-control. Philosophy calls it sovereign reason. It is the same principle. And the most powerful is to understand that, at the same time that addiction hijacks chemistry, it never hijacks essence. Your mind remains capable of being trained. Your spirit remains capable of resisting. You are not reduced to dysregulated neurons. You are human being, capable of rising. Philosophy teaches to endure discomfort. Science explains why this works. Endure discomfort and the brain creates new route. Use purpose and reason, gain strength over desire. This is the map. Science as manual, philosophy as compass, and you as soldier who decides to walk. In the end, it is not enough to know concepts nor just repeat phrases. It is necessary to unite practice and reflection. Science proves that you can change. Philosophy tells you to act as if you had already changed. Put the two together and you discover freedom is not promise, it is daily practice. Knowing how the brain works is fascinating, but it doesn't solve anything if it stays only in theory. You can understand everything about dopamine, synapses, prefrontal cortex. But if you don't get up tomorrow and choose differently, you will continue to be slave of impulses. Science shows the mechanisms. Discipline transforms the mechanisms into weapons in your favor. It is here that the battle ceases to be explanation and becomes practice. Discipline is not a personality trait reserved for a few. Discipline is repeated choice, day after day, until it becomes identity. It's not about being born disciplined. It's about becoming disciplined. Every time you feel the impulse, the mind begs for quick relief, and even so, you remain firm. You are training that invisible muscle. With each repetition, it grows. It's like going to the gym, but instead of lifting iron weights, you lift weights of will. Many think that discipline is prison, but observe the life of those who have no discipline, disorganized, unstable, dominated by instincts. That, yes, is the true prison. Discipline gives structure, clarity, power of choice. It is the key that opens doors that addiction closes. Without discipline, even the deepest knowledge becomes ornament. With discipline, even the simplest knowledge transforms into weapon. Pornography, like all addiction, is an inverted training field. Every time you give in, you are training submission. Every time you resist, you are training mastery. Which of the two versions do you want to cultivate? The slave who repeats cycles or the warrior who erects walls? The difference between them is not talent, it is not luck, it is not genetics. It is discipline, and discipline does not grow in comfort. It is born of pain. It is in the discomfort of abstinence, in the anguish of not giving in the frustration of facing the emptiness, that you become forged. The mind screams, the body trembles, but the spirit rises. This is not weakness, this is training. Each resisted impulse is a practical lesson on how to master yourself. Today, you already know what needs to be done. You have already understood the chemical cycle. You have already understood the game of dopamine. Now the question is, will you just know or will you act? Discipline is the watershed. It is what transforms spectators into warriors. It is what separates men who dream from men who achieve. So, choose today. Choose discipline. Choose to be greater than your impulses. Choose to be master of your own mind. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for motivation. Just choose. Because it is in the repetition of this choice that freedom begins. The brain as prison or weapon. We have reached the end of another chapter of your journey, and now you know the brain can be both prison and weapon. Prison, when impulses drag it like invisible currents, when each click becomes order, when you wake up and fall asleep obeying automatic commands. Weapon, when you train this same machine to serve the purpose, when each impulse becomes opportunity to strengthen reason, when each resisted day transforms into silent victory. Plato would say that whoever does not govern himself is not free. Science confirms whoever does not control the brain is controlled by it. But the good news is that you were not born to be hostage. Within you exists the ability to reprogram, to redesign paths, to rewrite your own mind. The prison has key, and the key is in your hands. Think well. How many men do you know who waste entire years trapped in artificial pleasures, believing that they are masters of their own lives? How many follow automatic routines without realizing that they are puppets of a chemical system? You are here because you refused to be one more. You decided to look inside and confront the real enemy. Not the screen, but the mind that desires it. Now carry this with you. Each impulse is a battlefield. Each impulse is chance to train. Each impulse is brick that builds or destroys your fortress. Don't see relapses only as failures. See them as reminders of the price of not watching. Don't see resistances only as small victories. See them as invisible crowns that accumulate on your head. Your mind can be prison, but it can also be weapon. Prison if you continue to give power to desire. Weapon if you train discipline until each impulse becomes fuel. In the end, the choice is yours. It always was. And I want you to leave in the comments the word day 10. It's not just a number. It is proof that you have advanced one more step, that your mind is already being rewritten. Subscribe now to not miss the next episode, because the war continues. Remember this phrase: your mind can be your cells or your sword. It's up to you to decide how to use it.